The universe of Kingdom Hearts is truly fascinating. I've said once before that the ramifications of how many of these worlds are ostensibly set on the same world are best left unconsidered, but at the same time, I can't help it. It goes all the way back to the way these kids built a raft and expected it to reach the stars. Was that really just childlike naivete, or is that how this actually works? Sail far enough in one direction, will you reach another world's ocean? It's just as well the game never answers this question. The mystery is the magic in its way, but there are things we do know. Traveling between worlds is an extremely common theme in many Disney movies, sometimes literally, like the doors to the other holiday realms in Nightmare Before Christmas, but sometimes more abstract. Wonderland is a separate world from Alice's London, meaning gateways between these worlds can take many forms. Heck, Monstro is a world unto himself. Gummi blocks are materials formed within the gaps between worlds. When those barriers break down, gummi blocks rain like meteorites, and some societies have figured out how to harness their power to travel the realms. So it seems that while many worlds border each other and sometimes even overlap, the lanes between can be used as shortcuts. Pioneering gummi travel is the Disney Castle. Fitting, given the adventures its denizens have had across countless other Disney worlds, now so well traveled that they are essentially the self-appointed peacekeepers of the multiverse. But others have slipped through the cracks beneath their watchful eye, and perhaps the most interesting of these is the Olympus Coliseum. It's a neutral zone where the rules of meddling seem not to apply, where the Heartless are plentiful yet completely under control, corralled into formation and pitted into combat for entertainment. Is that Hades doing, or are the gods simply that powerful? Could it be that all worlds are beholden to the forces they command? Once again, the fact that Olympus continues to show up in nearly every installment makes me think this may be the case. The thing is, these are more or less the same rules that the central Disney canon follows, that nearly all of their greatest stories take place within one world. Perhaps at different times, perhaps quite distant from one another, but essentially, believing in a story is all it takes to make it real. So if any of the characters within these worlds trust in their hearts that something more is out there, they already have the means to seek it. Welcome back, everyone and everything, and our destination today is one of the purest extensions of that point, but its presence on our world map is one of the most interesting of all of them. In the simplest terms, once you've finished Agrabah, Monstro, Halloween Town, and Atlantica all unlock. If you try to venture to the far side of this loop, you'll get what the fandom calls the Scenic Gummi Route, an extra long stretch between Horrorland and Undersea Dream that doesn't serve any purpose. Once you've completed all three worlds, you unlock the boss of this loop, as it were, but there's an extra bit of behavior that pretty much only speedrunners are concerned with. You can get to this world after clearing only 2 of these 3, but if you do that, there's a 30% chance it won't appear when you head over this way, forcing you to take the scenic route. But for having beaten Parasite Cage 2, Giant Ursula, and Oogie's Manor, this ship is guaranteed to ambush us partway through the lane. This is one of those great moments akin to Monstro that shakes up our expectations, realizing that we're not the only ones flying around out here, and that we're severely outgunned. One small detail a lot of people have seized upon in this scene is how different this pirate ship's model looks when comparing its interspace form from its form here in the ocean. I don't really have an answer here, but if it's tradition that everyone have their own theory, then maybe this is the Jolly Roger coated in gummi blocks to enable space traversal. I do love a lot of the little things in this scene. This is the only time we ever get to see this version of the ship, and they put a lot of effort into it. You can see a rack of cutlasses around the foremast, the way the helm spins actually matches the ship's movements, and the flags have physics to them. It's so extra. A much more interesting little detail is this scene, which you'll probably remember we already saw at the end of Monstro.
So, Kairi's like a lifeless puppet now?
But if you've only done Atlantica and Halloween Town, the story kind of needs you to see this cutscene before we go on ahead, so it drops it right here instead. In fact, if we turned and headed to Monstro at this point, we'd find a lot of cutscenes altered. Don't worry, we will cover those, I promise, but that's for another time.
I didn't think you'd come, Sora. Good to see you again.
Well, where are Donald and Goofy?
Are they that important to you? More important than old friends? Instead of worrying about them, you should be asking about her.
I haven't really talked about how impressive this animation was for the time. Yeah, I gushed about the opening movie, which is still stunning by modern film standards, but it does of course have the advantage of being pre-rendered. Over here in the game engine though, just look at how much emotion they managed to convey on Riku's face. In 2002! And then they hit you with this depth of field move and just whoa! The cinematography goes so hard in this scene, man. Watch what they do here.
Riku, why are you siding with the Heartless?
The Heartless obey me now, Sora.
This is classic storytelling through camera work. Riku is being bisected by the narrative, losing half of himself to the world around him, and he can't even tell.
Now I have nothing to fear.
You're stupid!
Yes, he said the thing. I love this line so much. I'm gonna play it back like 4 more times.
You're stupid! You're stupid! You're stupid! Sooner or later they'll swallow your
Not a chance. My stupid's too strong.
Riku!
A lot of people really meme on this. The voice crack, the absolute lack of eloquence, but it's so good. Sora is at such a loss for words. He's been seeing fools get completely overwhelmed by darkness left and right, and now the biggest role model in his life is like, nah, I'd win. Just, Riku, you idiot, what's wrong with you?
Like this, for instance. You can go see your friends now.
For a single frame, there are 2 Soras on screen here. What's worse, Smee only has 8 toes? Oh right, of course, Captain Hook, his Loblolly Boy, and the iconic ship the Jolly Roger all hail from 1953's Peter Pan, all adapted from the works of J.M. Barrie. The movie is, well, it's certainly a window into another time, but it's also one of the most thematically collinear movies within Kingdom Hearts. The story is almost wholly centered on the idea of growing up, the strength of childlike imagination and curiosity in the face of adults who mean to squash it.
Let's get underway already. And keep Sora away from Kairi until we're ready to land.
That scurvy brat thinks he can order me around.
What shall we do, Captain Hook?
Nothing! The hold is crawling with Heartless. Let them keep an eye on the brats.
Of the shadowy council we saw surrounding Maleficent back when we first trounced guard armor, I would not have pegged Captain James Matthew Hook as the most formidable, and certainly not the most trusted, but I imagine his vessel's propensity for traveling beyond the bounds of his own world was what earned him that honor. Of course, we've seen both Maleficent and Riku travel via these dark corridors by this point, but I think it's safe to assume that that entails steeping yourself in darkness, which even the mistress of all evil tends to discourage. Still, he's rather on the comical side of the villainy spectrum.
Roll for the ship! Roll for the ship!
But, Captain, you know who is also down...
Did you hear that, Smee? Oh, that dreadful sound.
No, Captain.
Are you quite sure? Did I imagine it?
I always thought this was just a case of Hook's nerves acting up, but if you listen closely, you can briefly hear talk ticking in the background here.
But, Captain, you know who is also down...
You don't say.
Yeah, it was definitely Kairi. I finally found her.
All right. Yep. Then let's go up and talk to her.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Okay, but first, how about get off?
Oh, sorry.
Hey, wait a minute, that sounded familiar. Yo, God, there's no escape!
So that's my top 10 countdown of horniest sounding Donald lines. I was especially taken aback by number 7. I'm sorry, what the hell is a game breakdown? Where am I?
What are you doing in my video, Pat? And why do I look like a... What gives you the right?
I guess it's the damn Hook ship singularity. These things tend to gravitate to each other. Speaking of which, have you got into how you think Kairi may have ended up here?
Yeah, shush. I was getting to that. You don't own all niche and granular KH content. You can't just do this.
Oh, and have you told them about the bubbles? Make sure you tell them about the bubbles.
Yep, we're not there yet. Come on, you gotta go.
A Sora's shadow. Don't forget about the Sora's shadow thing.
Yes, thank you. Goodbye. That scene genuinely goes really hard. It captures a very unique feeling of friendship. These 3 are comfortable with each other. Even in a relatively dire situation locked in the brig of a pirate ship manned by Heartless, they can share a moment like this. It's so feel-good. I've got the warm fuzzies just talking about it.
How you doing there? Looking for a way out?
Man, this world starts with a lot of cutscenes, especially if you skipped Monstro, jeez. It's a good thing they're so jam-packed with character.
I'm the answer to your prayers.
Peter Pan is an odd one. Even in his own film, he's not exactly the most lovable. He's a brat when he doesn't get his way, he's totally lacking in empathy, and though he is the hero of the hour, he almost serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of not growing up, or at the very least, not maturing. And it's nice to see how quickly they nailed all that in just a few lines of dialogue.
Tinkerbell, what took you so long? Great job. So you found Wendy? Hold on. There was another girl there too? Are you crazy? There's no way I'm gonna leave Wendy there.
Aha! She must be pretty jealous.
God, I would love to stop bringing this sort of thing up. In her original design, Tink is wearing, like, Spanx, a similar color to her dress. Or it might be that her dress is actually a romper. But here in Kingdom Hearts, they changed it so, like... Can we stop that? Can we cut that out? The hell do you mean it's worse in KH2? Welcome to the ship's hold, and much like Monstro, once again, we can just leave. Head on back among the stars and explore the many features of these gummy routes that have been added since discovering Neverland, like the Catoblepas. I'll be honest, I have no idea what they were going for here. In Final Fantasy, these are sort of demon snake cows. Here they look like vacuums. Anyway, at least knowing Kairi's here gives us every reason to stay, but the fact that I can just boogie out of here with my ship makes me think I should be able to get back on deck without much trouble, but alas. Step outside the safety of the hold and we'll be accosted by many a scurvy foe, starting with the creatively named pirates. They behave somewhat similarly to bandits, though they can be all the more threatening given they have the ability to recover from being staggered by your attacks really fast, and even have a charge attack which ignores hit stun completely. In numbers, I highly recommend using magic. Their animations are also fantastic. If they miss their jumping attack, their sword will get stuck in the wood, and they'll have to fight to wrench it loose. It's adorable. Battling them for the title of cutest animations is Shadow Sora, our own shadow turned against us with a bent for causing mischief. He's not terribly strong and will spend most of his time jauntily dancing, but if he lands an attack on you, he'll cause you to drop money. Avast! Those be my doubloons, you hunk of blubber! He's impossible to actually take down. Once he gets to half health, he'll morph into the ground and flee, but that does count as a W for the sake of his rewards, which are pretty nice. Even got a chance of dropping elixirs. He'll also flee if you leave him alone for long enough, but he'll inevitably pop right back up at full health once you reach the next room. Look at him lounging there, oh my god. And if he misses his kick attack, he kinda slips and drops his money. This is fantastic. Oh yeah, and there's some slightly upgraded regular shadows here, you know, whatever. Peter Pan, as a movie, loves shadows and silhouettes. It was like the hot new trick in their bag of treats. The animator's looking for every possible opportunity to show it off, with the crown jewel being the scene of Peter trying to pin down his own sentient shadow. Look at the way he bends with the curves on the wall and trips on the shadow of this stool. Ooh, that's slick! They're so stylish with it. So it's pretty cool to see all of that sort of interpreted through gameplay. And the cherry on top, just like when we fought Darkseid way back when, Sora's actual shadow is missing. He straight up does not have one. Even if you leave Neverland and go anywhere else, Riku outright took it from us, which feels violating, right? I wasn't exactly using it, but not cool. Uncalled for, I would say. Before we get too lost between the ship's bulkheads, check this out. You can see the trap door we were dropped down from through the deck, and the second one that would have put us in the hold. Heck yeah. In fact, the Jolly Roger may well be the most cohesive collection of areas in the entire game, and there's even evidence that it may once have been intended to be even more interconnected. These wooden hatches are modeled separately from this area's basic collision map, meaning they may have been designed to be removed or opened at some point. But as far as I can tell, that was never implemented.
I'm Peter Pan.
I'm Sora.
Okay, we're in this together, but only till we find Wendy.
Peter Pan is a unique party member who specializes more in speed than anything. Fittingly, he has access to both arrow and stop, and many rapid dagger attacks that can stunlock enemies pretty handily. But it's just cool to have him on board, flying around as you struggle with ladders. It's so on brand.
So, how come you can fly?
Anyone can fly. You want to try? Just a little bit of pixie dust. There, now you can fly.
Ah, phooey, Donald. We don't need no pixie dust to fly. We got Dumbo. Why don't we have Dumbo? He's just grounded. Why? What'd he do wrong? You can summon him in some rooms, but not others, presumably as an anti-sequence break measure, which is very odd.
What? So Wendy's not one of the chosen ones?
There are 7, supposedly. And Maleficent says she's not one of them. Hoist anchor as soon as possible. Leave all the dead weight behind, including her.
After the trouble of capturing her? And why those 7?
I love the idea that Hook is mainly offended that his movie's heroine isn't a Princess of Heart. Like, what's wrong with Wendy? These chosen ones can't be that special if Wendy isn't one of them.
As long as it means getting Kairi's heart back, I couldn't care less.
The prisoners have escaped. What's more, Peter Pan is with them.
Blast that Peter Pan. All right then, bring the hostage to me cabin, Smee. Hop to it.
Peter? Peter Pan?
Wendy!
Please, hurry! The pirates are coming!
I want to start with Wendy herself, because that voice right there, that beautiful voice, that is Catherine Beaumont, the original voice of Wendy, reprising her role nearly 50 years on... Wait, this feels familiar. You know who's also familiar is Corey Burton, who did The Doorknob, The White Rabbit, Flotsam, Jetsam, Dale, at least according to IMDb, but I didn't think he talked in this game. Did he voice act that? And finally, Captain Hook.
You're wasting your time. The Heartless have devoured that girl's heart. I'll stake me other hand it's lost forever.
Wendy?
Yes?
Is there another girl in there with you?
Oh, why, yes. But she seems to be asleep. She hasn't budged an inch.
So, Kairi then. Though we've gotten a fairly clear picture of what Riku's been up to since we all left the island, our knowledge of Kairi's journey has some glaring gaps. If we could even call it a journey, it doesn't seem she's really been in the state to do much adventuring, but we can put together a few details based on what little we do know. Sora landed in Traverse Town, Riku landed wherever this is, and Kairi landed... somewhere. Presumably it was somewhere that Maleficent had pull, as she was able to locate Kairi before she sent Riku off to do a little errand for her. Based on that, I think it's a safe assumption it was the domain of one of her underlings. Obviously not Olympus, we checked there, though admittedly I guess we weren't that thorough, but I'm narrowing it down to Atlantica, Halloween Town, and Neverland. Hook and Riku swing by to pick her up, then Riku pops off the ship to dig around in Monstro because he got some hot puppet intel from... I guess, Honest John or something. We really gloss over what Riku is doing there in the first place, but we know by that point they already had Kairi on board the Jolly Roger. At some point, likely just before we headed out this way, they swung by London and captured Wendy and Peter Pan. This had to have been really recent given that Peter and Tink would have been pretty difficult to hold in the hold for any extended amount of time. Maleficent does some kind of 23andMe test to find out Wendy's not a Princess of Heart. Sorry, only one Catherine Beaumont at a time, I guess. And here we are. Now, I could believe Kairi wound up on any of these three worlds. If it were Halloween Town, that might even hold some sort of tangential key as to why the Heartless were so docile there. And it would give Oogie Boogie a role in the story. Sorry, big guy, you really don't feel like one of the main villains, do you? If it were Atlantica, we could get some nice thematic parallels for her and Ariel, each caught between two worlds, not to mention Kairi's name literally comes from the Japanese word for sea, but I really like the idea that she wound up in Neverland or London. There will be precedent established throughout the series that those lost, either in body or heart, are often drawn to those they have a connection to. That connection could be love, friendship, destiny, or maybe they just hit it off really well at a bar, but Wendy's story intertwines with Kairi's beautifully. Kairi resisted change, she resisted growing up. Riku's confident swagger and man with a plan attitude got everyone on board, but Kairi was only ready for the journey when she thought she had the option to come back. Wendy's central conflict is the notion that she's too old to stay in the nursery with her younger brothers. In their own way, a little bit of a parallel to Sora and Riku. She's resistant to the change that is thrust upon her as well.
But Mother, I don't want to grow up.
And if you really want to come down into the weeds with me, I have some of the most circumstantial evidence imaginable. Back in ancient times, there was a Japanese trailer for Kingdom Hearts which showed Riku big chillin' on Big Ben looking broody, looking for Kairi, presumably. And then, in the far-flung future of 2011, this was more or less canonized when we were shown this flashback in Kingdom Hearts Recoded. We were even given a similar flash in the in-game trailer for the Never-Made Birth by Sleep Volume 2. Sure, it's a lot of loose threads, but if we twist them all together, it's enough to convince me that Kairi landed in the nursery and Wendy kept her in a drawer next to Peter's shadow. Prove me wrong.
Wendy! Hey, let's get up there!
So it seems the room we're in now is the ship's galley. And though you can't douse the fire, all of the tiniest things in this room still have their own footstep sound effects. There are a couple places we can go from here. If we use this door, we'll open up a small shortcut back to the main hold, where we started. But we gotta head up, through these holes in the ceiling. If you head over to the door of the room where the girls were being held, you get a quick missable cutscene.
Wendy! Are you in there?
And that was it. I said it was quick. But we gotta get into this room with the Green Trinity. It's nice of them to put a save point right next to it, as it's one of the few required to finish the game. And we can reach the captain's cabin.
Riku, wait!
Anti-Sora. This guy ain't playing around like the shadows in the lower decks. He's quick, tricky, and he's often considered one of the bigger roadblocks on a level 1 run. His biggest asset is this room. It's a tight, awkward space with a lot of jutting geometry to trip you up, and he thrives in it. Largely because his only real weakness is range. He's all melee attacks, so if you had a big open space to kite him around, he'd be at your mercy. Alas, we are at his. Now, what makes Anti-Sora an especially difficult foe is very similar to the Pirate Heartless. Though he flinches when hit by an attack if he's just walking around, his own attacks are not interruptible unless you block them, meaning he can pull out a swing while you thought you were comboing him. And for the first time since Riku, this guy has a retaliation mechanic. It functions a little differently. It seems it's only sensitive to finishers and special attacks like Goofy's shield charge, and it seems to be probability based as opposed to a countdown. But he can respond to strong attacks by temporarily entering this intangible GUI form, teleporting to your position, and then performing an especially strong horizontal swing. But by far his most threatening attacks are his last two. Shadow Jutsu, shut up, that's what I'm calling it, where he summons 2 clones to mix things up. These will disappear immediately upon being hit with anything, or even if their attacks are blocked, but until then, they are just as threatening as the original. Trying to wade in and brute forcing your way past them is asking for pain. Your safest option is to try and hit them all with a spell. Since upgrading our stop spell, it now has the widest radius of them all, and is the most reliable, but depending on your MP budget, you may prefer to use Thunder or Blizzard instead. Then there's Shadow Upper, where he'll first disappear completely before emerging from the ground beneath you with an uppercut. The good news is, he's not teleporting. He's still moving at the normal rate he does when he's in his flat shadow form, so if you can get a sense for how fast that is, this attack feels pretty manageable. But even still, he can juke you out really well. Getting hit by this attack doesn't feel like a matter of if, but how often. But we'll circle back to that. Now, brute force is an option here, overwhelming him with magic, limits, summons. If you've got MP and ethers to burn, you can blast this fight apart. My personal favorite method is to summon Bambi and alternate between stop and a partial combo like 20 times in a row. But if resources are limited, here's what I recommend. It's gonna sound a little silly, but unequip high jump if you have it. Bring in Goofy and Peter Pan and unequip any abilities of theirs which cost MP, then fill their inventories with as many ethers as you can spare. Do not give them any health recovery items. On Sora, you're gonna want to have at least 1 Mega Potion on standby, and even on level 1 where magic is king, I highly encourage using Pumpkinhead for this fight, as range and strength will matter. Now, I have a pretty good strategy for dealing with Anti-Sora's first phase. The only trouble is, having allies on the field tends to throw a wrench in things. So as long as either one is conscious, hang back and let them hammer away until Anti inevitably swats them down. Once it's Sora v Sora, jump attacks are your best friend. Wait until he commits to an attack, jump in and strike once, then short hop away and attack to close the distance. Get into a good rhythm, and thanks to the way Anti-Sora chooses which attack to do next, he will be unable to hit you. You can conceivably lock him into this combo until he gets to his second phase at around 400 HP. But that's where things get a little nasty. He'll start prioritizing both Shadow Jutsu and Shadow Upper way more over his regular melee attacks. This is particularly obnoxious since this means he's going to be spending a lot of time just being invincible. And he especially likes to begin his second phase by using Shadow Upper like 900 times in a row. You might find yourself landing 1 hit per every like 5 he does, but don't worry, you're not doing anything wrong, that's just how this phase works. In fact, this is probably the most annoying thing I've seen any boss do in this game. There's a chance he might enter the state where he does nothing but Shadow Upper over and over and over again. No matter how often you avoid it, he'll just keep it up and be invincible the whole time. He'll only exit the state if he either lands a hit on Sora or is blocked. If you don't have guard, you're genuinely better off just taking a hit and healing. It's infuriating. If you notice him start to do this, my recommendation would be to use that Mega Potion we packed and immediately summon Dumbo to outdo him on his own invincibility BS. But odds are, that's not going to be enough to close out the fight, and from here on in, patience is key. Another quirk of his second phase is that the odds of him doing his nothing personnel attack goes way up, to the point of being all but guaranteed on finishers. But this can be a good thing. If you manage to get in close enough, now would be the time to go for full combos. Hop over his head when he counters, and repeat that process for as long as he lets you. In the end, this is all going to come down to how well you can evade him. and how equipped you are to heal when it turns out the answer is not that well. This is where all those ethers on your allies come in. You don't want them healing each other and getting in your way, but by replenishing your magic, they can fuel your nasty cure habit. And as long as you don't panic and try to heal immediately after being hit, there is generally enough space between attacks that you can heal safely throughout the whole fight. Once you got all that down, you effectively have him down too. And hey, we got our shadow back, how nice. We can now explore and admire Hook's cabin at our leisure. Though it's mostly background details in the movie, this piano's an easy one to spot, as well as the many wood carvings etched into the ship's beams. Like this dagger motif we can find almost everywhere. We never get a good look at the desk in his cabin, and this map only bears a paltry resemblance to Neverland, but this chair is a dead ringer for this one. There's a treasure chest on Hook's bed containing some puppers, which pushes us over 70, and in turn earns us an orichalcum from Mom and Dad. All three of these are in the dining room, another Carnation Dalmatian, one more beneath the wine bottles, and our first to be by these other spare chairs. Curious thing I noticed on the way back, though this save point in the cabin was accommodating enough to let me leave the world, you're not allowed to land there. I wonder why that would be. Well, I'll more or less get my answer when we open up this hatch to the room where the girls were being kept. Because there's also a save point in here, and both these rooms, and by extension both save points, are labeled the same thing. So I imagine they didn't want to confuse things by having two cabin locations in this menu.
Wendy!
This is just a little dark when you think about it. Riku gave the order to ditch the dead weight. The pirates came into this room, got Kairi for Riku, and incapacitated Wendy in some ambiguous matter. Did Wendy try and protect Kairi when they came to take her? Is that why she got knocked out?
Quite a codfish, that Riku, running off with that girl without even saying goodbye.
Run off where? Tell me, where did he go?
To the ruins of Hollow Bastion, where Maleficent resides. But you won't be going there. Unless you intend to leave your little pixie friend behind.
I love how Sora treats this with so much weight. He's known Tink for what, 10 minutes? And by all accounts, she's kind of a brat, but he's still full on.
Hand over the Keyblade and I'll spare your lives. I'm glad I'm merciful, unlike the Heartless. So, which will it be? The Keyblade or the plank?
In fact, this whole scene's kind of amazing if read into at all. Sora pretty much knows he could hand over the Keyblade like Hook asks, and just zoop it back when he frees Tinkerbell. Or, you know, it's not like this is that many Heartless. So my only interpretation is that Sora has this whole tableau already worked out in his head. The hero cornered on the plank, no way out, unless...
Fly, Sora! Just believe, and you can do it!
After everything he's seen, you bet he believes he can fly. This was the worst kept secret in all of Kingdom Hearts. They showed it in the trailers, they showed it in the demo reel, they put it on the back of the freaking box, and none of that does anything to diminish the catharsis of taking full, unrestrained flight. The first thing they do with it is pit you against a bunch of stupid grounded enemies that just have nothing to deal with your newfound power. Really let you bask in the freedom. This, in my opinion, is Neverland's pillar of design. The ability to approach things from any direction, to choose your style of play, and to have the liberty of making your own choices. It really takes a bit from every world up to now and rolls it into a ball. Flying is a lot like swimming, but simply by having the option to land, it feels like so much more. Of course, playtime doesn't last forever. After our first wave of freebies, air pirates. These are probably the most straightforward of the airborne Heartless we've had to contend with. Their high stats are all that make them formidable, but get past the fact that something can chase you into the air, and they're no problem. Then appears a battleship, the large bodies of the sky. These are extremely threatening Heartless, packing an entire arsenal of firepower, and having the unique attribute of consisting of several destructible components. 2 cannons, a sail, and this armor on the aft of the ship. Destroying each one has its own pool of drops independent of the rewards for defeating the Heartless entirely. This charge attack is their most threatening. The rest aren't great at hitting a moving target, but there's one attack you might want to get hit by. This cure bullet is aimed at its allies to restore HP, and if you are feeling so bold, you can intercept it and reap the benefits, which is downright cool. Now, both of these aerial foes suffered a fate worse than death with their final mix recolors. I guess I don't hate them, the battleships look a bit more like the Jolly Roger, but the air pirates don't look any more like members of Hook's crew or anything. I suppose the idea was to lean less on the color purple when it came to the whole Heartless roster, but I like purple, dang it!
Is that you, Smee? Did you finish them off?
Aye, Captain. They walked the plank, every last one of them.
Peter Pan! Blast you!
Ready to make a splash, you codfish? Now it's your turn to walk the plank.
Captain Hook. A bit of a punchline in almost every story he's been in, and this is no exception. This fight feels practically tailor-made to make you feel like Peter Pan, a flying devil who has nothing to fear from this dapper-dressed dolt. Still, he's an old hand with his sword, and if you were in a sporting mood to fight him man-to-man, you'll probably have a pretty tough time with this one. Following a pattern with this world, Hook tends to shake off your attacks without issue, and can respond with a wide variety of quick and lethal sword techniques. In a battle of just mashing the attack command, he's got you outmatched, make no mistake. However, the real threat here is this battleship he's got helping him out. Having to fight this battle on two fronts is extremely difficult, and even if you take out the air support, he'll summon another to take its place pretty quickly. But truly, why bother with any of this mess? Hook has absolutely no means of dealing with you if you're more than a stone toss away from him. He's got this uppercut slash that can shut down an approach from above, and he can throw an ingenious device at you if you're hanging just out of sword range.
Could he but see within the package, he would find an ingenious little device.
But if you're out over the water, all he can do is fruitlessly jump at you before realizing this is the Crocodile's domain, and wily coyoting himself back.
You'll not get the other hand!
Here's his biggest mistake. When he does this, he always returns to the exact same spot by his main mast. And like so many of the best duelists we've faced, he has no defense against being struck while in mid-air. So here's my admittedly very cheesy strategy. First, disable the battleship, but don't destroy it. By taking out its mast, it will begin to malfunction and fly much slower, essentially ensuring you don't need to worry about it as long as you give it some space. If you're worried about it healing Hook, you can also disable its cannons, but the lower its HP, the more likely one of your party members might accidentally take it out, leaving you to disable the new one all over again. Not to mention, I have literally seen Hook do everything in his power to avoid being healed. He can even deflect the heal bullet. On the off chance it does land, it only restores about 75 HP, so I wouldn't worry about it over much. A common mistake people tend to make when fighting battleships is trying to avoid their charge attack by circling around them, but they track you too well. Dodging this attack only takes a slight adjustment upwards. We got a whole new dimension to work with, so abuse it. Once the battleship is crippled, you can set in on Hook. Just hang out overboard until he comes to you. Give him a few whacks if you can, but once he falls down, meet him over by the mast and give him a quick combo. If you do it right, you should be able to knock him overboard again and get in a few more free hits. But if he lands back on deck, not to worry, just wait him out again. It really is that simple. When coming up with these game plans, I always try to concoct a strategy for getting through the whole fight without taking any damage, and this is the easiest time I've had with that since Dark Side. It's kind of ironic given alongside Flight we unlocked Cura, which will heal an additional 12 HP, but you're not likely to need it. With your excess magic, you may want to let loose on the captain, but you have to choose your spell carefully. He's immune to thunder and will always block it with his sword, but that doesn't make it useless. It essentially stuns him for a moment, and you can absolutely alternate thunder, hit, thunder without fear. Or even just use it as a means to let Peter cut him to absolute shreds. This boy has no chill. Speaking of, Blizzard is your best bet if you're just looking to unload some raw damage, but I recommend Fire. Hook can respond to getting hit with fire in two ways. One, he'll be briefly stunned in an animation, or two, he'll fly around the arena rapidly with his britches ablaze, trying to careen into you as he goes. This attack can be a bit threatening, especially if he can't be hurt or interrupted during it, but once again, he's rather tethered to his ship, and if you hang out over the water, he can't touch you. As a fun fact, the battleship's bomb sweep attack can also trigger this behavior. You may have caught on, this essentially expedites the process of luring him overboard, and he'll usually stop just outside his railing. Possibly the best part of this tactic is that you can infinitely interrupt his process for resummoning the battleship if that's giving you trouble.
See ya!
It's downright unfair. He stands no chance against us. They went the extra mile and coded in a couple of adorable behaviors to drive home the panoramic power fantasy. For one, you can briefly confound him by flying over his head.
Where did they go?
His favorite attack to do is this X-shaped slash, and if you manage to parry it 3 times in a row, he'll really feel the shock of it for a moment, which is of course a reference to the film. And I believe this temper tantrum he throws before his disorderly thrust is as well, but a little more obtuse. Odd thing about this attack comes with a sound effect that often gets buried in the cacophony of battle. I imagine it was intended as like a piping kettle sound, like in the old cartoons. But I'm telling you, it sounds like Hook is cursing me out. Sailor talk indeed, Captain. I mean, what the f***? This is a kid's game. While trying to isolate those sound effects, I noticed a couple others I was charmed by, like listening to him try and blow out the fire down below. And here's one I genuinely don't know when he does, but I found it in the files, just straight up a sneeze. Last thing about this arena that's a little neat, though Dumbo usually has a pretty strict ceiling on his flight, out here it's just as unrestrained as your own flight, which I feel like they didn't have to do.
Oh, Kairi couldn't wake up, so maybe she's really lost her...
Sora.
I still can't believe it. I really flew. Wait till I tell Kairi. I wonder if she'll believe me. Probably not.
You can bring her to Neverland sometime. Then she can try it herself.
If you believe, you can do anything, right? I'll find Kairi. I know I will. There's so much I want to tell her about flying, the pirates, and everything else that's happened.
This is especially sweet for one very cool reason. Though it's never directly addressed, Kairi and Sora love pirates. Sora had this little pirate ship model in his room, Kairi's up on her sailor lore and eager to call Sora captain. These two are total nautical nerds and would absolutely geek out over this story.
What's that, Tink? What about the Clocktower? You say there's something there.
The Clocktower, one of the biggest question marks on this game. Here we are in just straight up Edwardian London. There's the Thames, there's the Palace of Westminster, there's Westminster Abbey, Central Hall, St. James Park, County Hall, and here's the maddest one. These two buildings here are the Gogs, which at the time Peter Pan was written were only half complete as they are here. Look at this ultra low res Union Jack on top of Victoria Tower, oh my god. They went several orders of magnitude above and beyond to make this location as analogous to real life as they could. This is our world, and yet it's treated as though it's just a part of Neverland. As far as that goes, we never go to Neverland proper. Presumably Hook's ship is sailing on its ocean right now, but that might not even be the case. For all the information we're given, it could just be chilling in the English Channel. Frankly, they never even call it Neverland. This is just London. But you know what? That's fine. It is still one of the coolest worlds in this game. Even if you could sum it up as 2 playgrounds to fly around in, that is absolutely what I'm here for. Is Wendy really tall, or is Sora a short king? How old is Wendy, like 12? Anyway, she's concerned that one of the clock faces doesn't match the others, which I'm pretty sure is Peter's fault, but we can fix it. Before we do, be sure to grab this treasure over here, especially if you're playing the original game. This chest used to contain puppies, and that caused me some difficulty as a child. More on that another time. I really thought this next cutscene was added in Final Mix, but it's still there in the original, a continuation of that flashback we got heading into Monstro, though this time, an extra bit from Riku's perspective. Destiny Island's keyhole revealed itself to him where it never did so for Sora. Worth remembering.
It was reckless to bring her here without at least using a vessel. Remember? Relying too heavily on the dark powers could cost you your heart. a castaway. Though his world perished, his heart did not. When we took the princess from his castle, he apparently followed her here through sheer force of will. But fear not. No harm will come to you. He is no match for your power.
My power?
Yes, the untapped power that lies within you. Now, child, it's time you awakened that power and realized your full potential.
So thanks to Hook, we finally have a name to put to this place we've seen so much of, Hollow Bastion. And yeah, that really is all there is to Neverland. It's a tiny little world. Hook almost feels like a mid-boss. Instead, he's just a mid-boss. Frickin' got him. However, there is still a lot to do.
Oh boy, she's getting steamed again. Do me a favor? Look after her for me, will ya?
What?
Wait, that's how that cutscene ends? Is the implication that Tink is going with Sora to make Peter jealous? Oh god, we have so much to go over now. New shared ability, new Keyblade, new limit, new summon, new answer report, new tournament, but first, the hour is upon us. It is time to talk about my playtime. Kingdom Hearts is not a long game, at least as far as RPGs go. A typical casual playthrough will usually run you 20 to 30 hours. If you're going for all the extra stuff, you'll probably get up to 40. So you might look at my time played here and think, oh, 44 hours and we're nearing the end of the game, not bad. But the especially vigilant among you might have noticed that I was already above that as far back as Olympus Coliseum. See, this little timer here is a lot like Sora. It can't count past 100. So instead, upon reaching 100, it rolls back around to 0 and changes color.
So, what took you so long?
Well, the reason this matters is the Clocktower behind me here. Its minute hand coincides with our own minute counter. It doesn't move in real time, but it does refresh every time we enter the area. The hour hand lines up as well. Of course, by dividing by 12 and counting by the remainder, so 44 is 8. Now this would be quite cool on its own, but each hour on this clock face represents a door on top of the tower. While it's on that door's hour, we unlock it and get some very nice treasure. I've heard a couple weird yet prevalent rumors about this. One is that you need to roll over your time past 100 hours to get these, or else speedrun the game to get here in under 2 hours because the doors only work when your hour counter is 1 through 12, but that is not the case. You have until the clock maxes out to get the treasures.
So, when does it max out?
I'm so glad you asked. This clock has the capacity to record 1 second short of 400 hours. After our green clock maxes out, it will roll over to purple, and when the purple clock maxes out, it will roll over to red. The red clock will stop counting at 99:59:59, which actually has a few ramifications. Apart from these doors, the game references the clock to determine a number of random details, and if the clock is frozen, they'll be permanently consistent. The ones I know of are Huey, Dewey, and Louie's orientation in the shop, the position of the pot centipede, and the locations of the frozen white mushrooms in the pink agaricus spawn rooms.
So what were you doing that it took you 140 hours?
Well, this right here represents my next 12 hours, and you probably should just carry on and remind yourself to come back every hour, but that kind of thinking doesn't get you this kind of playtime. The prizes here are quite good, but I should probably note I doubt these were intended to all be gotten on a single playthrough. They were more likely meant as some sort of Easter egg, and thankfully, this game doesn't track individual treasures, so you can skip them and still be on track to 100%. If you're gonna prioritize any of them, I'd say focus on the orichalcums. Now we are free to leave Neverland, but there are a few things to do back on Hook's ship. For one, we didn't get a good look up here on deck since it was all cutscenes and a boss fight, so let's peruse a bit, shall we? This map on Hook's table is a much more faithful recreation of the one in the film than the one in his cabin. To such an extent, you can even see writing in all the same places. But I do want to point out an odd error in the movie. You can clearly see this compass on the map showing that it's conventionally oriented with the cardinal directions. But later, when Tinkerbell is giving Hook instructions, she walks east along the south coast and Hook calls it west.
40 paces west of Blind Man's Bluff.
I have nothing to add, that just stuck with me. I adore this effect on the water you get for flying along its surface. If you're curious, the game will not permit you to swim in this, forcing you into flight if you get low enough. Even if I hack it to make the game let me fall, Sora still finds an answer in Christ. I also quite like these reflections of the stars in the sky and the ship, which is once again my favorite trick at work, all of them modeled and textured under the surface. If we head up above, we can see a treasure nestled in the foretop, another orichalcum, and back on deck we can notice one more delightful bit of continuity. This hatch by the door is obstructed by this barrel. We can never remove it, but if we head through this door, which creates a shortcut back to the cabins, and work our way back to the main hold, we can see this ladder leading into the ceiling which lines up perfectly with that hatch. While we're down here, there are a pair of brilliantly hidden chests nestled up here in the rafters we can reach now that we can fly, a gummy, and some more pupperoos. Neverland pups stick together it seems. These three are all in the den, one by the window, one under the couch, and this fella on the pillow. If we head back up on deck, there's a chance we may get lucky and encounter our good friends the rare truffles. And this is where I can really recommend taking on their challenge. I'll fully admit, the tactic for juggling them in Halloween Town is more consistent once you get the hang of it, but that's a big once. Having the ability to chase them into the air is quite intuitive, I find, and you can do this reactively until you do get a feel for the timing. But more importantly, getting these guys to spawn here, even without Encounter Plus, is so effortless. Just making a quick loop through the cabins, and there you go. The only tricky thing here is that eventually, you will hit the invisible ceiling, which can throw a wrench in your rhythm. But in my opinion, it makes the timing even easier. Just don't lose your cool, and you too can be recognized as a master of keepy-uppy. While you're working on that, you might happen to encounter something rather different. Meet the Jet Balloon, Neverland's rare Heartless, and quite a force to be reckoned with. Similar to the Chimera, he doesn't feel especially gimmicky, he's a fight like many others, but by virtue of how fast he moves and attacks, you do have to approach this a little differently. He'll launch a whole fleet of these missile divers at you, completely invulnerable foes that may as well be projectiles. Their rush attack also causes you to drop 100 money when struck, which can get expensive fast. So flying in headfirst is not recommended. The tricky thing here is that you probably want range for the rare truffles, but magic for the jet balloon. So you're really gonna have to choose your Keyblade and accept you're gonna have a harder time against the one you didn't prepare for. I have come up with two potential strategies, each one contingent on summons. The thing about Neverland is that your fuzzy animal friends really don't like flying, and if you get too high above them, they will literally just peace out. So Simba and Bambi, not terribly productive choices. Dumbo's ace here though. His invulnerability lets you cruise right past all these missiles. The problem here is that he's not especially fast, and the jet balloon will flee if you don't beat him in a timely manner. So unless you have a lot of magic, you'll need to finish off the fight without him. Even if you do have the magic to spare, be careful where you finish him off, since any items dropped overboard will vanish quite painfully. While not riding Dumbo, you're going to want to approach at a steep angle and spam stop. Maybe stock up your Lost Boys with some more ethers so they can sustain you, and keep them locked in. The other strategy sorta cuts out the middleman. You can use Genie, still spam stop, but with some luck, he'll throw in a few of his own, and together you can just stay in his face and keep up the damage. I don't feel great about either tactic. Ideally, you'll probably want to have another upgrade or two before farming this guy. But if you gotta have a Dazzling Stone right now, this is what I got. There's an extra gimmick here to do with money. While the missile divers hate the rich, this guy loves the poor, and will scatter 100 money at a time if Sora has less than 100. However, he does seem to be significantly less willing to stick around if you're that broke, so be especially wary of the divers if your funds are low. Now, our newest flying summon may not be that much help against that fight, but that is not because she's unhelpful. In fact, she is downright broken. All Tinkerbell does is heal, but as she restores HP equivalent to your max MP every 1.7 seconds, it's a lot of healing. In addition to that, she doesn't eat your party members like other summons do, essentially functioning as a fourth party member. When close to Donald and Goofy, she'll spread her healing out among them as well, cycling evenly between everyone in range, and even has the ability to pick them up if they're knocked out. Another thing, you may notice a severe lack of a summon gauge up in the corner. No, it's not invisibly ticking down while she's on the field, she outright has no timer. There are only two ways she takes off. One is by dismissing her, and the other, I'd really like to show you, but I can't. It's for letting Sora reach 0 HP, but this is how cracked she is at her job. I cannot die. I had to go on a freaking crusade looking for worthy foes, but even Pot Centipede, with me actively walking into his poison, could not outdamage her healing. With her by my side, I can stand still in front of the Chimera without having to worry. I'm not even especially over-leveled, I'm level 47, and the enemies in Neverland have an MP recovery stat of 42, so I'm pretty close to the normal curve here. And even this guy's wicked attacks can barely outpace Tinkerbell. When Sora falls to 0, she disappears, but not before healing him to full regardless of max HP. There is absolutely no downside to summoning her. The only thing you can't do with Tinkaround is summon anything else. Or open doors and chests, but if you're trying to do that, you already didn't need her. Younger me that never used summons is feeling pretty dang foolish right now, I'll tell you that. But I fully blame the game design here. I stand by Simba being a terrible introduction to summons. He's useless against bosses, has the slowest summoning animation, and back in the original game, the summon command was buried in the bottom of the magic menu. But hey, maybe they just didn't want me snapping their game in half with unlimited HP. Guess I can't blame them. The only other thing there is to find on Hook's ship is Tinkerbell, hanging out in the cabin the girls were locked in. You can talk to her, but without Peter in the party she doesn't do anything. With Peter, she's essentially a warp to the Clocktower, but you may notice no such interactable exists to return us to Hook's ship, so the only way back there is directly from the Gummi ship. This creates an especially peculiar quirk with Neverland. If you play through the entirety of the world without touching either of the Type A save points on board the ship, then when you finish the world and lock its keyhole, the save point on the Clocktower will be the only one available to you, effectively soft-locking your file out of everything on the Jolly Roger, at least until a bit later. Let's do the Ansem report next. Hook's pages detail a visit to Ansem's world from a king, who we can only assume must be the king himself, who it would seem absolutely obliterated the no meddling rule and spilled all the beans about the gummy blocks and even the Keyblade. Second report in a row to mention a mysterious door that opened, which he assumes set so much into motion. But these last 2 pages are of particular interest to me. It's another glimpse at the sort of thing King Triton was bandying about, that the Keyblade is a tool that's perhaps been used for both great good and great evil. But I want to thank Ozama LP for pointing out to me that the 3 Ansem report we've gotten most recently seem to be shuffled. This one matches up with Atlantica. The one we got in Atlantica detailed the naming of the Heartless, which might have gone a ways to explaining the Halloween Townies' knowledge of such things. And the one we got from Oogie Boogie was all about gummy blocks, which would seem to be Hook's area of expertise. Definitely an interesting observation. Now on to what is perhaps our most momentous acquisition, the shared ability Glide. I have dreadful news. We do not have the ability to fly in any world but this one. We do have the next best thing though, and can now access every treasure in every world which is not locked behind a trinity or spell. In no particular order, we can get this Osmos Gummy in Agrabah. This is plainly how we were meant to get into this Jack-o'-lantern house in Halloween Town, as well as this upper ledge in Wonderland. But we can now get this Mithril in the Tea Party Garden. Though it's not technically a treasure anymore, Glide is the only way we can regain access to this balcony above the cafe we once accessed via Trinity. And I like it up here. I also want to use the file on which I skipped Monstro to point out how hard they worked to ensure you could not get Dumbo's Summon Gem without high jump. You might think this would be to prevent you sequence breaking anything that requires the extra height, but genuinely, the only story requirement for high jump is here in Monstro, and it's blocked by wooden boxes up to this point anyway. A quick aside, though I could cover the alternative Monstro cutscenes now, I do want to wait until we have a bit more story context. I assure you, we will get there. There are a couple more spots to use Glide, but it makes sense to shelve them for the moment. In the meantime, I want to point out that I have been flying around all game. In fact, this is because I'm playing the Steam release of the Kingdom Hearts collection, and playing on PC gives me the luxury of modding the game. Now I don't want to get too into the weeds here because the possibilities truly are endless, but I do want to shout out KSX387 for creating the mod that enables Neverland flight in every world. It has been a huge boon to me in my efforts, and if you're playing on PC, I highly recommend giving it a try. It feels like such a natural extension of Sora's abilities, to the point I'm almost surprised they didn't make it a permanent upgrade you could get by the end of the game. Of course, gliding is still indispensable on its own. In fact, it's the movement ability I was alluding to way back when we first encountered Sniper Wilds here in Traverse Town, and will make their Power Stones far more attainable. Once they get into the later rounds and become much more volatile movers, you can cover your approach by pursuing them from above, and dramatically reduce the chances of being spotted. Other than that, always reset to behind their spawn location, and attack immediately. You'll essentially have one less monkey to deal with each round, and they shouldn't give you much trouble. I recommend having fire on standby in case you get caught in a bad situation. If you hear one off-screen spot you, just lock on and pray and you might be able to keep things under wraps. Now the last bits and bobs we got from Neverland are this fancy new keychain and a brand new limit. And it just so happens we also unlocked a brand new Olympus Cup to try them out in. Don't mind if I do. The Hercules Cup, starring Wonder Boy himself, promises to push us pretty hard, especially since this is the one way the game can lock me out of using Tinkerbell. But the Fairy Harp is just the thing for it, packing even more strength than Pumpkinhead and a bit of magic to boot. It may be little, but it is mighty. So strong in fact they decided to nerf it in Final Mix. It used to pack twice the crit rate and crit bonus, but it's honestly no great loss. Excellent design too. The keychain is Peter's feather, the teeth are his panpipes, and I like the texture on the grip. This has gotta be the most comfortable Keyblade to hold. Round 3 of this cup features a battleship, and without the ability to fly up to them, these guys are much more threatening. They have a strict damage cap of 30 and resist gravity, making them more difficult to take out at range. I still recommend using gravity once to cut off a chunk of their HP, but the rest you'll have to do the old-fashioned way. Round 5 is a rare truffle, I suppose because they had to show up at some point. This is actually a pretty cool idea for a bonus round, since they have an MP recovery stat of 100, playing their game is a battle to see how much magic you can get. I'm a fan. Then round 6. Looks like Cloud decided to give us that rematch after all. Our old sparring partner hasn't changed much, but he's beefed up significantly in the stats department, and has come prepared with a new attack. Omni Slash, where he takes flight and becomes invincible for the duration of 5 especially quick and powerful slashes. Now that we've got some serious adventure under our belt, I recommend pursuing a more daring tactic than before. Cloud is honestly best faced head-on. Whether by using guard or a well-timed attack, parrying his moves is almost always better than dodging. It can open him up to a combo. This is also where our new limit, Ars Arcanum, comes in especially handy. Learned by watching Hook flail his sword around like a madman, Ars Arcanum, which is Latin for mysterious arts, is a 13-hit combo attack, boasting various amounts of strength bonuses. Despite its steep cost of 3 MP, this is the most bang for your buck you're gonna get on an enemy with a significant damage cap. It does, however, have some gaps in the amount of invincibility frames it grants Sora, which can leave you vulnerable if you don't get your target stun locked. It works especially well on Cloud, as its strikes are unblockable and can steamroll right through his guard ability. So by opening him up with a block and following up with this, you can really shred through his HP bar. You do have to win this time, but we've come so far that should be no problem. For beating Cloud, we already get a new Keyblade. I just started using this one? Let me at least finish out the cup first. Nothing much to report on the last few seeds, until our final match against Hercules. Sora wants to take him one-on-one. He says he won't go easy on us, but holy Zeus, is he ever lying his ass off. Hercules is taking it so easy on us, I barely feel he deserves this fancy mural I gave him, but whatever. I gave Sabor one, so I'm not skimping out now. Herc seems like he might be a little difficult, as he spends most of the fight glowing with immortality, in which state he's invincible to all of our attacks. Nothing works, it would be hopeless, if not for these incredibly conspicuous wooden barrels spawning into the battlefield. For reasons I can only chalk up to Hercules testing us, hitting him with these flimsy cardboard tubes works where the magical Keyblade fails, and causes him to drop his barrier, if not completely stunning him. Now we can actually fight. He's not immune to any magic, but he may as well be. He's got like a 99% resistance to most spells, so you gotta hit him the old-fashioned way. That's fine by me though, because once again, he's taking it so easy. It's downright patronizing. All of his attacks have such patently obvious telegraphs, you're more likely to get hit by them because you underestimated how long the windup was. Say it with me though, I still like this fight, because it pays a lot of homage to the movie, particularly Herc's fight with the River Guardian. You got this wind-up punch, using his head, and I think this spinny sword maneuver is this, but that might be a stretch. I genuinely can't imagine anyone needs my help with this fight. While he's invulnerable, he literally spends half his time flexing. Just like, hit him till he dies, you know?
That's the power of the Keyblade!
Yeah, that's a fitting victory screen. Now, I love making jokes about this. Like, your weakness is barrels? Seriously? But there may be a genuine mythological precedent for this. You see, in the myth that could very well have served as the basis for Hercules' mortality in the film, Heracles' wife, Deianira, was tricked by the river guardian Nessus into making Herc vulnerable. Nessus told her that if she soaked a shirt or robe in a barrel, wink wink, of his blood, and gave it to her husband, it would ensure his faithfulness. The thing is, he tells her this while he lays dying after Hercules poisoned him with the blood of a Lernaean Hydra, one of the most dangerous substances in legend. Since Ness's blood is tainted by Hydra blood, it's now just as dangerous, and when Herc puts on the shirt soaked in it, it saps his power and nearly kills him, and he only survives by lighting himself on fire to burn off the shirt. Yeah, OG Herc didn't mess around, but the point is, if these barrels are also filled with poisonous blood, that would be a legitimate explanation for this weakness. Not that I'm convinced Square actually designed it with all that in mind, but hit me up, Nomura, let me know.
Wow! And I didn't even hold back!
Bull! A bit anticlimactic, Herc was essentially the final boss of Olympus. As for beating him, we get this whole song and dance of the cutscene concluding this place's arc.
Come again?
If we stick together, we're unbeatable. Not even Hercules stands a chance.
It's not bad. In fact, despite being optional, this is kind of a huge lesson for Sora that'll get a major payoff in the game's closing hours. However, I do kind of feel like Phil here because the contrast between this scene and the scene of Sora challenging Hercules to a one-on-one battle is completely bewildering.
The three of you together make great heroes. And as a team, I'm sure you can overcome anything.
Well, we open this chest that's been taunting us in this lobby for ages, and it's another Keyblade, oh my god, and a new Trinity, it never stops! Okay, let's rewind. I'm taking Metal Chocobo with me into the Hercules Cup solo challenge. Remember, Sora just learned a valuable lesson about teamwork, so obviously he's gonna go it alone. This Keyblade is described as possessing incredible power and reach, and at 9 strength, it was certainly the strongest one we had gotten at this exact point. Get out of here, Olympia, let Chocobo have a moment, please. And it's packing the highest recoil stat we've seen yet, doubly useful when compared with other long Keyblades we've gotten so far. This thing excels at brute forcing its way through your opponent's attacks, and is especially nice to have against Cloud. Of course, the keychain itself is a Chocobo, easily the most obvious of the Chocobo Easter eggs in this game, and as for the design of the blade, this is simply the most deadly looking weapon Sora has ever wielded. Just a straight up steel beam bedecked in harsh right-angled corners. It's clearly an homage to Cloud's own Buster Sword and has a delightfully satisfying impact sound. The problem is, I can't be sure it justifies what you have to give up to use it. It has the lowest crit rate of any Keyblade, no crit bonus, and -1 MP in a game where magic does basically everything. It's a brutal cost for a relatively small return. I don't hate this Keyblade, but between loving magic and having 2 other options literally right now, I never use it. For beating that cup solo, we get Critical Plus, which doubles the crit rate of our equipped Keyblade. These stack to triple or quadruple the rate if you've gotten any more. So if that is the sticking point for you on a given Keyblade, it's nice to have the option to fix it. But if there comes a day where I need to crit, I'll just equip Wishing Star. Onto the time trial, we'll pack our newest new Keyblade, Olympia. Sorry Chocobo, this one's even stronger. Double digits, baby, and 90 recoil, and doesn't dump your MP or critical stats in return. Okay, wow. I don't hate Metal Chocobo, but someone on the dev team certainly did. Why would you get both of these within 4 fights of each other? What's worse, Metal Chocobo had its strength nerfed from KH1 and Olympia was buffed. Cloud fans are in shambles. And you know, at least design-wise, I like Olympia less. I love the keychain itself, bet the prize for winning the tournament was Zeus's crest in recognition of our status as a hero, but I don't know, I'm just not a fan of the aggressive branding on all of Herc's merchandise. Have some self-respect. If you want me to advertise your products, I expect to be compensated. Right, so this time trial is probably the smallest step up in difficulty the time limit has provided so far, thanks to the sheer breadth of options we now have. But as you probably expected, my strategy involves loading everyone up with ethers and clicking Thundara on the quick select. We'll mix things up with Gravira when the battleships show up, not even bother with the rare truffle minigame, and that basically just leaves Cloud and Herc. Cloud's easy, we just Mysterious Arts his face off, wait out a round of Omnislash, and do it again. And that should get you to Herc with plenty of time to spare. Another component to this strategy you may have unlocked by now is an ability unique to Goofy called MP Gift, which lets him spend 2 MP on 3 MP for another party member. If you unequip his other special attacks, give him MP Rage, MP Haste, Second Chance, and Second Wind, he essentially becomes an MP battery, able to gain it extremely quickly and grant it to you and Donald. This is what makes Goofy's MP stat, and by extension the Dream Shield we got not so long ago, extremely valuable. He can sustain everyone's magic even better than a stock of ethers can. Though on the subject of shields, we did just pick him up a new one. Herc's shield is excellent. the highest strength of any we've found while boasting a medium profile. Not to mention, most likely a reference to Zeus's shield, the Aegis. So if you want Goofy to deal damage, this is your discus. But I'm all aboard Team MP Battery. Thanks for the trophy though, Herc. Oof, 90 seconds to go. I feel like I can do better. Let's start over and try to get... okay, never mind. 90 seconds should be plenty. Yeah, so in all versions of Final Mix, at least all English versions, thanks for taking one for the team, Game Champ, trying to reset from the Hercules fight just resets the Hercules fight and freezes the timer. And you know something? We freaking take those. We get Gravity Break for beating that challenge, a really peculiar and cool finisher ability that will sometimes swap the last hit of your combo out for this gravity-based attack. And the really cool thing is that its damage, though still percentage-based, is calculated using Sora's strength stat. Downside, its base damage is so low that your finisher will never finish anything until you have 60 strength. Not a strictly unapproachable number, but nowhere near as practical as our base gravity spell. Still worth keeping in mind though, it may be nice to have a percentage-based attack that doesn't cost MP. As with all the cups, beating the time trial gives us the option of taking on any individual round from a menu, and this is by far the quickest means there is of farming a rare truffle. Obviously you can't get the drops, this is just for XP, but you can hit reset if you ever drop the combo and get right back to business. And as far as actually juggling him goes, this nice flat arena is pretty user-friendly. If you can get him to this corner, behind and to the left of where you start, it's all downhill. Make sure to pack a nice long keyblade, jump away slightly before each swing, and you'll get level ups aplenty. And the last prize we picked up from here, Yellow Trinity. Perhaps with this power, that stone block will not be too heavy. I see what you're saying here, game. Sora tries to push the block on his own, no dice. But when he comes at it with the power of friendship, yep, I follow. Now there are only 4 Yellow Trinities in the game, and we can get all of them right now. It's by far the least utilized. On top of that, our second one is completely worthless. Here in the Cave of Wonders, we can push this statue down and reach this upper ledge we got to as soon as we got high jump. Even if you didn't get high jump, you can still make this jump with glide. But the kicker is, you need to have unlocked both in order to unlock the Pegasus and Hercules Cups. Why did they think you needed this statue? Thankfully that's the only dud. The one in the Jolly Roger's main hold is easily the best one yet. This is basically the ship's treasure store, and it's got it all. Puppies, dark matter, orichalcum, and the power of wind in a box. I mentioned some time ago it would be a while before Arrow came into its own, and this is it. This is its own. Let's do the puppies real fast. We got one on the floor near the front door, one under this crooked chair in the dining room, guess she wasn't quite admitted to the under the table club, and one snoozing peacefully under the TV room couch. Now, Aurora doesn't last longer or block more damage, no. It gains a contact damage aspect, and not some piddly 1 health drivel. Each hit does about a quarter of the damage of thunder as non-elemental magic damage. Forget taking half damage, this barrier can make you all but immune to some melee-centric Heartless, and is the complete and utter bane of anything we fought before Agrabah. And, perhaps most importantly, the Pink Agaricus. Since we first uncovered this dancing queen, we've upgraded our stop spell, and in addition to Aurora, we now have Ars Arcana. Put them all together, make sure you have Spellbinder equipped and Goofio and Donance ready to supply you with magic, and you should be able to get up to 40 hits without much thought. I was able to get over 60 by being a little more strategic with my use of Ars Arcana, using only 2 of the bash commands before letting the combo drop. But either way, more than enough to secure a Serenity power. I was also delighted to find that one of the white mushrooms hiding places could be up here in the Crow's Nest, somewhere you can only reach with glide. If this weren't the case, this little area would be entirely without purpose, but come on, who didn't want to reach this when we first got here? As long as we're in the jungle, I want to head over to the vines. There's a little flower bud here by the save point you can examine. It will give you a choice of time trial courses. And yeah, you remember the awesome vine swinging mechanic. They knew you wanted more of this, of freaking this. So we're not gonna bother. We now have high jump and glide, and with these upgrades, this actually is quite fun. Trying to stretch your jumps as far as they can go, gliding into a vine feels cool as heck, launching yourself off one at the right time makes me feel a little like Tarzan. This is what I'm talking about. This is why I wanted to wait until now to cover this minigame. Even though it was available back when we sealed the keyhole, this is a way more fun time to do it. I am lying through my teeth. I did not know this minigame existed. I know. I, of all people, people just had no idea this was here. It's just as well, because in spite of the timer, there's really nothing here that wasn't here before. Even with the addition of higher difficulties, the route through this area does not change. The only difference is that some of the vines get replaced with danger snakes, or nope ropes if you will. They'll fall down if you hold on too long, which is a cute movie reference, but there's no reason to hold on for the amount of time they give you. One cool detail is that even though their heads are above the trees, they're still fully modeled up there. After completing all those, if we look at our journal, we'll see a completion mark on the minigame menu. Generally, when people talk about degrees of completing Kingdom Hearts, they never say 100% because none of us really knows what that would entail. And it would probably include all the gummy content, so instead, we measure based on journal completion. Aim to get that delightful Mickey stamp in every category possible, and nobody will fault you for saying you did everything. We can take that Serenity power back to the Moogles and make ourselves an EXP earring, something that's sure to come in handy when we inevitably make a break for the max level. And since doing battle with pirates, we can now craft a Titan chain, a direct upgrade to the Golem chain we made not so long ago. But everything else here is still out of reach, and that wasn't enough to unlock the next tier. Our final yellow Trinity mark is also here in town. Behind Merlin's house, we can shift these boxes to give us access to an AP up, and the last treasure we can get with Glide is right over here. Puppies 1, 2, and 3. Kinda feels monumental. There's one in the dining room by this... Is this a display case or a window? One more member of the Under the Table Club, and our third is under the TV table. That is... everything. Easily the longest round of world revisits we've ever had, at least for now. But that does conclude Neverland, the final Disney world in Kingdom Hearts 1. There is one more Disney world we know was planned at some point. Back in the design dock, you can see this kitschy rocket ship world alongside Destiny Islands with a barn on it, which says... Al's? Oh, I see. Yes, indeed, there were talks of incorporating Pixar's Toy Story to this game. Given both the Pizza Planet imagery and Al's Toy Barn, it seems it would have included elements of both Toy Story 1 and 2, and it's not hard to imagine why they would have wanted it. You can picture its 3D animation style mixing quite well with Square's, and thematically, both movies have a lot to say about growing up and bringing your childhood with you, which sounds familiar. The popular theory is that since Disney didn't outright own Pixar until 2006, this was a licensing issue, but I don't know if that was ever confirmed. It's certainly gratifying, knowing that Toy Story did eventually make its way into the universe of Kingdom Hearts, that was an idea they had way back in the series' infancy. In fact, I almost wonder if they chose Neverland in lieu of Toy Story. Imagine if we learned how to fall with style instead of fly, but that does bring us to the subject at hand. Neverland, despite being such a short world, is my favorite of any we've yet visited, and it is almost entirely down to this scene right here. It's so Disney, it's so fantastic, it's so freeing to see Sora take flight just above Tok's waiting jaws. It's an absolute core memory, solidified by how fun it is to fly circles around your foes in the ensuing battles. I suppose sort of anti-spoilers for the rest of the series, but fully unlocked autonomous flight has not returned in any of the worlds introduced after this game. And while that's a shame, I think it makes for a great representation of Kingdom Hearts 1's identity. It is the embodiment of childlike wonder and fun. It's a more innocent time where anything is possible, where Sora believes in the magic of belief, in happy endings, and in the enduring strength of friendship. Next time, we're going to set sail for Maleficent's fortress, the ruins of Hollow Bastion. And if you know this game, I'd bet you exactly $3 American that's the world you're most excited to see. If I won that bet, you can settle up by clicking the link in the description and heading over to my Patreon, where all my supporters get to see the next episode in early access. If I lost that bet, we'll work something out. Regardless, I owe every patron who already supports me a soaring thank you, including a Miri the Grey, who can put a seashell to her ear and hear the winning lottery numbers. A shame, she'd actually prefer the ocean. It's Ciel, though, who can't break glass by singing just right, but they can repair it with a sweet enough dance. Raven actually does have a nickel for every time he's heard someone say if they had a nickel. Raisin Bran can turn any two objects into either a deadly weapon or a practical Mother's Day gift, it depends on the mood. RPG Grenade can bring down a velociraptor with a boomerang. Why do you think there are no velociraptors around? Rockington looks the best in sunglasses, out of everything. Alex, Seeker of Shine Sprites, the first guy to reach enlightenment, environment and decide it's actually a bit overrated. Jugs, who discovered that alongside the Tooth Fairy, there are also lumbar, clavicle, and femur fairies doing their thing. Don't ask how he found out. Meryl Hainsworth, who professionally stands mysteriously on the outskirts of funerals for a very fair rate. Scar Daddio didn't know what to do with unfathomable power, so he gave it to the sun. How nice of him. Strangebird can pull off any move you've seen in a fighting game in real life. Some of them are a bit rough on the knees, though. Steve is the reason you're not allowed to use cellular functions on airplanes. Sea Salt Trio, whose smile is categorized by meteorologists as an M-class solar flare. And Lotta Otter, who's been accused of being 5 otters in a trench coat, but it's never been proven. More obsessive shoutouts to Busy Town, Jockufear, Chris Braydell, Doc Crimson, Eric Lee, Fundeldor, Jay Wibbs, Kane Lowwind, Kinori-san, Pagagallo, Quoth, Red Panda King, Remus, Sato DeSable, Scar Million, Tabriz Sadiq, 10-Beat, The Fantastic Mr. Fox, Undead Crisis, Zere, and the rest of you incredible patrons. And despite his intrusion, I want to thank Regular Pat for that little cameo back there. He's a joy to have around. If this has somehow been your first encounter with that goofball, I highly recommend checking out his channel for as many videos about the bubbles as you could possibly handle. Faith, trust, and you guys are all I need to take flight. And I will see you in the next one.